I am Elizabeth Taylor, and in March of 1961, I had a near-death experience that took me to the afterlife while the entire world watched. What happened between the scenes of my death and return was the most surreal journey of my life, more incredible than any film I had ever made. By the time I was 29 years old, I had already lived 3 lifetimes. I'd been a child star, an Oscar nominee at 17, married 4 times, twice to the same man. I'd been called the most beautiful woman in the world so many times it stopped meaning anything. I'd known triumph and tragedy, scandal and heartbreak. The tabloids couldn't decide if they wanted to worship me or destroy me, so they did both daily. And 3 years before that cold March day, I had known a love so consuming, so electric, that losing it nearly broke me the first time. His name was Mike Todd. He was my 3rd husband, a larger-than-life showman and producer who loved me with an intensity that matched my own. He called me his baby. And for the first time in my chaotic life, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. We were fire and dynamite, passion and laughter. When he died in that plane crash in 1958, something in me died with him. I tried to move on. I threw myself into work, into new relationships, into the exhausting performance of being Elizabeth Taylor. But there was always this hollow ache, this feeling that the best part of my life was over, and I was just going through the motions. And then came London, and Cleopatra, and the illness that would change everything. It started so simply. A cough, a fever, nothing dramatic. Just the Asian flu, the doctors said. Rest and fluids. But London in March is brutal. A damp, bone-deep cold that seeps into your lungs and settles there. The flu twisted into something darker. Double pneumonia. Suddenly, every breath was a battle, a desperate, rattling fight for air that I was losing. I remember lying in my hotel room as my fever climbed, watching the ceiling blur and shift. The world outside, the screaming headlines about my affair with Richard Burton, the $1 million Cleopatra production, the reporters camped outside. All of it began to fade into white noise. They rushed me to the London clinic. My condition deteriorated with terrifying speed. The newspapers, the same ones that had spent months gleefully tearing apart my personal life, suddenly shifted their tone. The headlines stopped gossiping and started pleading. Liz Taylor fights for life. The world prays for Elizabeth. I was slipping away, and everyone knew it. The doctors performed an emergency tracheotomy, cutting a hole in my throat just to force air into my drowning lungs. I have a vivid memory of feeling the cold blade, feeling my body arch in protest, and then nothing. Just darkness and the distant sound of machines. I was in a coma, but some part of me was still aware, still listening. I heard the monitors slowing down. I heard the panic in the doctors' voices, sharp and desperate. And then I heard the words that would echo through eternity. I think we've lost her. And they had. My heart stopped. My lungs went still. For 5 full minutes, there were no vital signs. The hospital posted the news. Within hours, newspapers across the globe reported it as fact. Elizabeth Taylor was dead. But I wasn't gone. I was just somewhere else. The first thing I felt was relief. The suffocating, crushing pain in my chest, it was gone. Just gone. Like someone had flipped a switch. I could suddenly breathe freely, fully. For the first time in weeks, the weight of my body, the fever, the machines, the noise, it all fell away. And then I was floating. I opened my eyes, or whatever passes for eyes when you no longer have a body, and I was hovering near the ceiling of the hospital room. Below me, I saw my own body lying on the bed, perfectly still. My skin was gray. My lips were blue. The tracheotomy tube protruded obscenely from my throat. 11 doctors surrounded me. I counted them. 11. Their faces were masks of exhaustion and defeat. I tried to call out to them, to wave my hand, to show them I was still there. I'm right here. I'm not gone. But my body wouldn't move. It just lay there, empty and cold. Then I felt it, a pull, gentle but insistent, like a current in deep water, drawing me away from the scene below. I drifted toward a light. And before you roll your eyes and think, oh, here we go, another tunnel story, let me tell you, no description will ever do it justice. It wasn't just light. It was warmth, safety, love, everything good I'd ever felt concentrated into pure radiance. It was like floating in champagne, weightless and euphoric. The chaos of my life, the pain, the grief, the scandals, the exhausting performance of being Elizabeth Taylor, it all dissolved. I felt peaceful for the first time since Mike had died. I moved deeper into the light, and I began to see shapes, figures, spirits. I don't know who they were, but I felt their welcome like a physical embrace. They knew me, they loved me, and I felt, in that moment, completely and utterly home. I didn't want to leave. Why would I? Why would anyone choose to go back to the mess and madness of life when this existed? And then, through the light, I saw him. Mike. My soul recognized him before my mind could process it. It was him. Not a memory, not a dream. Him. Solid and real and exactly as I remembered, that crooked smile. Those eyes that could make me laugh and rage and melt all at once. 3 years of grief, of carrying his absence like a stone in my chest, just shattered. Mike! I breathed, and I moved toward him, ready to throw myself into his arms the way I had 1,000 times before. He looked strong, healthy, happy. The plane crash that had torn him away from me, it hadn't touched him here. He was whole. All I wanted was to be with him, to stay in this place where pain didn't exist, and we could finally be together again without the world tearing us apart. I reached for him. He held up his hand, stopping me.
"No, baby,"
he said. His voice was exactly as I remembered, warm, commanding, full of that unshakable confidence.
"You can't. It's not your time."
Those words hit me like a physical blow. What do you mean it's not my time? I wanted to argue, to fight. I'm here. I made it. I want to stay with you. He smiled at me, that sad, knowing smile.
"I know you do, but you can't, not yet."
Why not? I was begging now, desperate. I've done enough, Mike. I've lived. I've loved. I've lost. I'm tired. Let me stay. His expression softened, but his resolve didn't waver.
"You have to go back, baby. You have to fight."
Fight for what? I demanded. What's left for me down there? He moved closer, and I felt the warmth of his presence wrap around me.
"You have things to do, important things, people who need you, battles to fight that only you can fight."
I shook my head, tears streaming down my face, or whatever tears look like in the afterlife. I don't want to fight anymore. I want to stay here, with you.
"I'll be here.
He promised.
When it's really your time, I'll be waiting. But right now, you have to go back. You have to live."
It was the hardest thing I'd ever been asked to do, harder than losing him the first time, because this time, I had a choice. I could stay in this perfect, peaceful place with the man I loved, or I could go back to the pain, the chaos, the grief. He was asking me to choose the pain. "I love you," I told him. My voice was breaking.
"I love you too, baby,"
he said.
"Now go, fight, live."
And just like that, the light began to fade. Going back was agony. Imagine being ripped from paradise and shoved back into a body that's broken, suffocating, burning with fever. The peace shattered. The warmth vanished. In its place was searing, blinding pain. I felt myself slam back into my physical body like a car crash. My chest seized. My lungs screamed for air. The machines around me started beeping wildly. The doctors noticed something strange. My hands, which had been limp moments before, suddenly clenched into tight fists. They tried to pry my fingers open and couldn't. It was as if my body was physically holding on to Mike's command to live, refusing to let go. One of them shouted, "She's back. We have a pulse." But I wasn't celebrating. I was screaming, or trying to. No sound came out, just air hissing through the hole in my throat. I was trapped in a body that felt like it was made of broken glass. The very first thing I did when I could finally speak, when they removed the breathing tube, and I could force words past my ravaged throat, was tell them everything. I described the 11 doctors standing around my bed. I told them about the light, about the spirits, about Mike. I needed them to know. I needed it to be real, not just some fever dream or hallucination. I needed witnesses. Some of them looked uncomfortable. Others exchanged glances that said, "The traumas made her crazy." But I didn't care. I knew what I'd seen. I knew where I'd been, and I knew why I'd come back. When I was finally stable, when they moved me from the ICU to a recovery room, I woke up to the strangest sight. My room was buried in flowers, mountains of them, roses, lilies, orchids. So many that the nurses complained they couldn't move. Letters from fans filled crates, thousands upon thousands of them. But the weirdest thing was the newspapers. There, spread across my hospital bed, were my own obituaries. I read them slowly, carefully. The world had mourned me. They'd written beautiful, glowing tributes. The same papers that had spent years eviscerating me from my love life, my weight, my scandals. Now that they thought I was gone, I was a legend, an icon, a tragic loss. I couldn't help but laugh. It hurt like hell to laugh. My ribs were still healing, my throat still raw, but I laughed anyway. When I finally appeared on Johnny Carson's show, months later, he asked me about it. I told him they were the best reviews I ever had. The audience roared, but I meant it. Dying, apparently, was the best thing that ever happened to my career. That year, I won my first Oscar for Butterfield 8. I've always believed it was a sympathy Oscar, given to me because I'd miraculously survived. The Academy loved a good comeback story, and I delivered the ultimate one. But here's the secret I carried for years: the Oscar didn't matter. The reviews didn't matter. What mattered was the mission Mike had given me, the reason I'd been sent back. I just didn't know what it was yet. For years after my return, I kept the story to myself. I was afraid people would think I was crazy, that they'd dismiss it as a hallucination, a desperate fantasy cooked up by a dying brain. But the experience was as real to me as the life I was living. And it changed everything. My fear of death was gone, completely. I'd been to the other side. I'd seen what was waiting. It wasn't darkness or oblivion. It was light and love and peace. It was Mike waiting for me with open arms. Knowing that made me fearless. In the 1980s, when the AIDS crisis began tearing through the world, when fear and judgment were killing people as surely as the disease itself, I wasn't afraid to speak up. My friend Rock Hudson died in 1985. He was one of the first major celebrities to die from AIDS, and the world reacted with panic and cruelty. People were calling it the gay plague. They were treating victims like lepers, refusing to touch them, refusing to care for them. I couldn't stay silent. I helped found AMFAR, the American Foundation for AIDS Research. I spent decades raising money, lobbying Congress, fighting stigma. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't easy. People asked me why I cared so much, why I was risking my reputation and my career to fight for a cause that was so controversial. The answer was simple: Mike had told me to fight. He'd sent me back because I had work to do, battles to win that only I could fight. This was my mission, and I fought like hell. My life was a beautiful chaos of incredible highs and devastating lows. I loved deeply and lost terribly. I was worshipped and vilified, often in the same breath. I made terrible choices and glorious ones. I lived with an intensity that most people can't even imagine. But nothing defined me more than my journey to the edge of forever and back. That experience taught me that death is not the end. It's a transition, a doorway. And on the other side of that doorway, there's something waiting, something peaceful and loving and eternal. It taught me that true love never dies, that the people we lose are never really gone. They're waiting for us, watching over us, sending us back when our work isn't finished. And it taught me that life is a precious gift you must fight for, not just for yourself, but for others. I lived the rest of my days without fear of the end. Instead, I lived with deep gratitude for every moment, every breath, every battle. Because I knew something most people don't. When my time finally comes, when I draw my last breath, Mike will be there, waiting for me, ready to welcome me home. And this time, I'll get to stay. So, tell me, what's your story? Have you ever felt the presence of someone you've lost? Have you ever experienced something that defied explanation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to Edge of Eternity NDE for more stories that explore the profound mysteries of life, death, and what lies beyond. And as always, stay curious.